Hello, this is Ryan Lopez, and this is my leadership coaching video review. So I met my mentor, Provost Dr. Simon Rhodes, through the Leadership Practicum. Dr. Rhodes had a similar educational come up as I have, getting a STEM bachelor's degree and involving himself with research activities early on. So I felt that he was a well fit for a mentor. Since he did a STEM bachelor's degree and was involved in research, we had a lot in common, especially since our research interests were centered upon biochemistry. Dr. Rhodes' research interests were in endocrinology, which is something that I've recently become interested in through conversations with my other mentors, Dr. Lane, who's my research mentor at UNF, and my sister, who's doing her PhD with a research group that works a lot with lead in the water, which is an endocrine disruptor. So she's definitely been in my ear encouraging endocrinology as a route. I think the first thing that I realized in my conversations with Dr. Rhodes is to stay open-minded with regard to different medical specialties that exist, because a year ago, I never would have guessed that endocrinology would be an interest of mine. I was always centered upon surgery, and so it really takes me being open-minded, especially going into medical school, and not subconsciously bias myself to a certain specialty. I was also interested in Dr. Rhodes' come up because he ended up thoroughly engrossed in education, which is an avenue I see for myself, especially towards the latter end of my career. I've been involved with supplemental instruction here at UNF for about 5 semesters now, and so I've fallen in love with the educational process. I wouldn't have done it for 5 semesters if I didn't like it so much. So I want my career to trend in that direction. I understand that being a physician is a taxing occupation, so I want to kind of trend my career in a way that I can end up as a professor or some sort of educational role. I can see myself teaching at a med school, being a professor at a med school, uh, or perhaps involved in the admission process and kind of contribute to the next generation of doctors. And Dr. Rhodes has been involved with medical school education and curriculum. And so again, I really felt like he was a good fit for a mentor. In my conversation with Dr. Rhodes, he commented that his involvement with education has been especially renewing to his spirit, since being around young students helps preserve the wonder that one feels for the topics that you study. When you're surrounded by other people your age or who have been in the field for many years, perhaps you get a little jaded with your subject matter. So at Indiana University, Dr. Rhodes was in charge of leading the graduate school, so he played a role in helping students find their way in terms of research interests. Since research is an integral part of the medical school experience, Dr. Rhodes advised me to cast a wide net at first and try to experience different types of labs, not necessarily different subjects. For example, you can work in a neurology lab and an orthopedic study lab, which are technically different subjects, but if you're doing the same techniques, then you're not really going to get you're not going to get the diversity of experience out of those two research activities. And it will be able to inform your decision to commit to a particular lab, as well as, even if you work in, let's say, 3 different neurology labs, one's a clinical survey, one's an outcomes research program, and the other one is hardcore biochemistry wet lab work. So an experience like that would be more valuable than doing different subjects, but all, let's say, doing biochemistry lab work. And so that was a piece of advice that I will definitely keep in mind going forward, since I will have to be involved in research at some point in the near future. We also spoke about the nature of research, which is that the fact that failure must be embraced. I mean, the thing about research is you're conducting work that's never been done before, so a lot of the protocols are not refined. A lot of the results, you don't know what to expect. And so failure is an inherent part of the research process. And the only way to be a successful researcher, and Dr. Rhodes definitely touched on this, is that you have to embrace failure. The only way to be successful is to learn from failure and accept them as learning opportunities. And I feel like that's very much easier said than done, because when you're performing hours of research work and an experiment fails or something goes wrong, it's hard in that moment to consider that, maybe there was something to learn and really like reorganize your method and move forward from that. And I understand that, technically it sounds easy, but in the moment, I've been in that situation several times where you really have to take a step back and consider why you're doing what you're doing. And he provided a lot of good insight on that part, which I feel like will benefit me whenever I'm doing lab work. I mean, majority of experiments fail for some reason or another, and a lot of times it's for a reason you're not aware of. You're not immediately aware to. So just keeping that in mind that failure is definitively part of the process. Uh, I think that was a good piece of advice. So Dr. Rhodes is involved in endocrinology, and so he also discussed research and medical ethics with me in a way that I had not previously considered. Usually you think about the abortion argument or kind of the stereotypical medical ethics arguments, but he proposed a particular situation that came up in the field that really changed the way I thought about medical ethics and opened my mind to different ways that these problems can present themselves. So the case he presented is as follows. You have a family that is informed that their 1-year-old boy will not progress mentally past the age of 3 years old. However, their body will continue to develop normally. Thus, the prognosis entails a fully sized adult man without proper mental facilities. The parents are each above average height, so they can expect that their mentally impaired son will likely reach 6 feet or more and likely weigh above 200 pounds. Since the son will require care for the rest of his life, I mean, this presents a very difficult situation, since caring for a mentally impaired child is simply easier than caring for a full-size individual. I mean, based on physical limitations alone. If you have to dress the individual, or if you have to wash the individual, or transport them, picking up a child is a lot easier than a 200 pound like full-size man. So for this reason, there has been work in the field of developing a therapy, and this has actually been done before. It's kind of controversial, but there's a route of therapy that involves injecting estrogen into the developing child's growth plates, which prematurely closes them. So a growth plate's a site on a bone that is the area which during puberty is which expands and leads to growth. So by prematurely closing the plates, I mean the child's growth will be artificially stopped. So there's a lot to think about here. I mean, the therapy will render care for the son. I mean, it'll make the care significantly easier for the rest of the kid's life. And there's arguments to be made that this helps, the child be loved, which is subjective, but it's a point to be made. However, this is an optional and technically unnecessary intervention. Thus, I mean, the endocrinologist and the family must weigh the risk that the child may progress normally mentally. Well, this case is unlikely. No diagnosis in medicine is 100% certain. So they have to weigh that risk that, maybe the kid will be okay. Weigh that with the fact that the son will be a burden for the rest of his life. It'll be a burden on the parents. They're gonna have to care for him. They're gonna have to have somebody at home more often than not. And the child is expected to have a normal lifespan. So, it'll be for the rest of the parent's life. So in this scenario, traditional medical ethics are tough to follow because now you have to take into account the family's quality of life because they're the people who are going to have to deal with the decision the most. Due to the elective nature of the therapy, traditional ethics would not support the intervention. I know that one of the pillars of medical ethics is you really only want to intervene when absolutely necessary and when completely in the best interest of the patient. There's always risk with intervention, so you are putting this child at unnecessary risk by going through this therapy. but is this therapy in the best interest of the parents as well, right? So now you have to bring into a bring into account two other individuals into this ethical argument. And so this situation that Dr. Rhodes proposed to me, it's motivated me to do further readings on medical ethics, to study other situations that come up. Because when I know that when I'm a physician, there are decisions like this that will have to be made, and a lot of the time, I'm not going to have weeks to ponder on it. A lot of these are going to have to be snap decisions that you make, and so um, it's situations like these where you could try to apply the traditional medical ethic rules and conventions, but situations like this where there's really no correct answer. Uh, I've brought this up in conversation with my friends and such, and I just think it's incredibly interesting to think about and study. So Dr. Rose has really made an impact on how I think about medicine, the way that I think about research, and so I see our relationship benefiting me definitely within the next 4 years, hands down, because I'm going to be doing a lot of the things that he was involved in. So I'm very grateful for Dr. Rhodes for that, and I think that's about it.